Hey, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to welcome you here this morning. If you guys are in the auditorium, would you guys stand with us? If you guys are at home, we're going to spend a few minutes just worshiping God. We just believe that God is a God that can turn any situation into something beautiful and something amazing. So Ethan and I are going to sing this morning. Ethan's going to lead us through a couple songs this morning. I'm really glad that he's here with me. And we're just going to sing, and we're going to spend a few minutes just really focusing on a God that just wants us to be in his presence and to feel loved this morning.
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures of pain I never known. And you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. So you guys sing this out. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you.
Do you guys believe that this morning?
I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. You see them all and still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountains is the God of the valleys, and there's not a place mercy and grace won't find me again. Come on. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing that. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Well, I know it's true. I know it's true. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing.
Come on, sing it out.
Better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you.
voices this morning. God, we thank you so much. We thank you that there is truly nothing that is better than you. We thank you for the moments that we get to sit in your presence and we get to feel the love that you have for us. God, we specifically ask this morning for those of you that walked in here, God, that you would just give us a faith that goes beyond anything that we can ever imagine. A faith that tells us that you have everything under control, God. That you are the one that can meet our needs this morning, whatever they are. Whatever we walked in here with, God, we ask that you will help us to throw that at your feet, God, and just believe that we have faith that you can take care of us and that you love us and that we are going to worship you this morning.
Soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to open my eyes, see that you're shaping my life. And all I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I need you to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. And all I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I'll give you my life. Sing that again. Give me faith. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I may be weak, and I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say,
Sing that.
and your Give me faith. Give me faith to trust what you say. And you're good, and your love is great. I'm broken inside. I give you my life. Oh. I need you. You're all we need to soften my heart and break me apart. I need you to open my eyes and see that you're shaping my life.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, that you are all we need. It is in your name that we pray this morning. Amen.
All right, well, I don't have to tell you guys twice. Y'all can have a seat. Welcome. My name is Dave. I'm one of the pastors here at Paradox. Yeah. We want to hear who you are. Yeah. Well, you got to turn it on here. That's, yeah. Oh,
Hello?
hey.
Sorry. I'm Gwen.
Go.
We're married.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like really awkward when you're supposed to like do this host moment together. We didn't really talk about it ahead of time. So we're just going to kind of go off the cuff here.
Yeah, so
bit.
this morning I said, Gwen, are you still doing the host moment with me? And she said, oh, that was today. And before you, no, don't think badly of my wife here. That was 100% on me, 100%. So y'all know what I'm talking about, things that go unsaid. But anyway, that's who we are. We want to know who you are because we're glad that you're here. Welcome, whether you're here with us in person, if you're watching us online, we're glad that you are. We're going to give you some ways that you can talk back to us and let us know who you are in all of this. But before we get into all of that, you might be wondering, last week, you never know what you're going to get here at Paradox. Last week, there was a waterfall of sorts that was happening all over the roof and everything. We had some leaks. Maybe you're wondering, is this some sort of remnant from that? Are we under construction? Today is a very special day because anytime you see some sort of thing like this up on stage, you know it's Pastor Mike Day.
Yeah.
It's Pastor Mike Day. Every day that Pastor Mike preaches is a special day, but today in particular is a very special day because today just so happens to be Mike's birthday. Yes. So if we still have some kids in here, before y'all leave, will you get up and on your way out, lead us in a rousing song of happy birthday. Journey kids, you are dismissed. Scream some happy birthdays out the door. Y'all can join in as well. Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mike. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Love you, Mike. Oh, please go to Journey now. Thank you. All right.
I'm glad you dismissed them because somebody had to dismiss our kids.
Absolutely.
We're all here. Who's watching them?
It's always good to get those kids dismissed. It's best for them. And everyone, they're almost gone. Yes, we love Journey so much. If you're new here and you have questions about that, you can follow those kids right out the door and talk to Holly. She is our kids director. We love having kids. It's an awesome week here at Paradox. And if you are thinking, hey, you might like to get involved, we would love to have you involved. We are slowly but surely opening up more and more of our classrooms as people come out of the COVID forest and say, yes, I'm ready. I can get back involved. I can help out. So we're thankful for all of the people that are volunteering and providing an awesome space for our kids. One of the ways you can do that, or like I said, let us know that you're here. If you're just watching online and you're like the creepy person right now that's just lurking in the shadows, we want to get to know you. Don't be the social creeper. Let's call it that, all right? We love you. We're glad that you're here. We'd rather have you creeping than not creeping. But if you could, click on that link. It is for a Connect card, all right? There are some QR codes in front of you if you're here as well. You can click on that, and that is going to do something, which is go to the Connect card, and you can connect with us. Whether you have a prayer request, you want to know, you let us know that you're new here, or really you're ready to get involved. Whatever the step is, you can do that on the Connect card.
You know, last week they actually said that people could type weird questions to ask you. Did anyone do that?
No. I didn't
What
get
a
one
bummer.
weird question. Yeah.
We really could have had
I
some
was
great
really
questions
looking forward
today.
to the questions, but that was a 1-week offer.
Oh. Well, I guess you'll have to find another way to
1 week
get all your
offer.
weird questions answered.
But here's one of the things. I know a way that you can get all your questions answered. Can you tell that we're not prepared, by the way? Could you? All right. I know a way that you can get your questions answered. Some transitions are better than others, and that is on the Church Center app. Question you might have: what is the Church Center app? Well, we're prepared to answer that one. Take a look. Yeah. One of the coolest features about the Church Center app is that music plays. You can't turn it off. You open up the Church Center app and it plays wherever. I'm kidding. We actually want you to use this thing because, as it said, you can check out the events. You can fill out that Connect card. You can check in, let us know that you're here, anything that's going on. And yes, you can also give on that, whether you're out at the cafe giving donations or in here giving your tithes and your offerings. In fact, why don't we do that right now? If you are new here, please don't let this be an obstacle for you. In fact, we want to say, just let this service be our gift to you. We want you to encounter a God that loves you just as you are, not put anything in your way. But if you want, you can pull out your phone right now. You can give to Paradox Church. We're thankful for your generosity and your partnership. If you're online, you can do that by clicking that link as well. There's buckets in the back if you are prepared to do that physically with those physical things called dollar bills as well. So that is one of the other things that you can do on the app. There's some events, though, on there as well. And one thing that I think we might need after this is the marriage conference.
We definitely need the marriage conference.
Yeah.
Whether you're in a good spot or where we're at, apparently, not prepared. It's going to be a great weekend. It's March 19th and 20th. You can register on the app. You can also, if you have any questions about it, you can head down to the hub. That's just that little area at the bottom of the stairs. There'll be people to answer your questions Friday night and Saturday morning. It's going to be a great weekend of just connecting with other people, connecting with your spouse, and hopefully getting on the same page.
Yes. Yes, it really is. It's open to anybody. There's going to be childcare there as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, don't let
If
that
nothing
be an
else, come for
obstacle.
that.
Yes, if you just want some time, all right, just come on in. Food, again, you don't have to be married. You can be engaged. You can be in a serious relationship, struggling in a really great place. We believe that we want to invest in marriages and that everybody is in a spot where that would be good. Another thing that we've got coming up this week on Wednesday, led by the wonderful Renee Richter, who you've seen up here on this stage. She's going to be guiding us through a night of prayer here at Paradox. If you are new to prayer, if you don't really know how to pray, if you just want to grow in your ability to pray, come on that night. It's going to be great. Did I say everything about it already?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay.
Even if you think prayer is kind of weird or you don't understand it, come. You might learn something.
Renee has this way of just kind of laying it out there in a way that you can just understand it and want to do it. So we are so excited to have Renee lead us on that night. And I'm also excited to have Mike lead us today. Are you?
I am.
Yeah. So we're in, I don't know what week of this series called Based on a True Story 3. And if you've missed a couple of weeks, that's all right. You can always catch up on the podcast, on our website, or you guessed it, on that Church Center app. Take a look at what this series is all about.
A few years ago, I walked into the living room just as my wife was finishing watching the movie. She was just kind of sitting on the couch, crying. So I looked at her, I said, "Is everything all right?" She said, "Yeah." And, "Is there something wrong?" She just shook her head. So I just looked at her and I said, "So why are you crying?" She looked up at me sweetly and said, "I love you." Now, I have not the slightest idea what's going on in this moment. See, they don't prepare you for things like this in premarital counseling. So I just looked back at her and I said, "I love you too." So as the credits begin to roll, she looks at me and kind of motions for me to sit down on the couch next to her. And I sat down and she cuddled up to me, dabbing at her eyes. And she says, "I guess you had to see the whole thing." When you miss most of the story and only walk in for the finale, you're not usually moved to tears. Have you ever met someone who talks about their faith or a God moment that they had? And it's usually one where they bawled their eyes out. And after they're done telling it, they just kind of look at you with these eyes like, "You know what I'm talking about?" And you're just sitting there thinking, "I guess you had to see the whole thing." See, for some people, the true meaning of Jesus gets lost in this labyrinth of religious tradition. Sure, they might know all the right words to say, when to sit down and stand up during a church service, or the proper way to act when a bag full of money passes them by, but God has nothing to do with the way they live the rest of their lives. They just go back home and throw religion back on the shelf to gather dust. For other people, the story of Jesus is almost unheard of, and it definitely doesn't move them to tears. To understand Jesus in the church, we need to experience the whole story. Enter the darkened theater, take a seat, and watch the tale unfold. Because the church doesn't make sense without the empty tomb. The empty tomb doesn't make sense without the cross. The cross doesn't make sense without the manger in Bethlehem. The manger in Bethlehem doesn't make sense without the Garden of Eden. It's all one story. And only when you finally untangle it, enter into it fully for yourself, see the whole scope of it, do you begin to realize that the story has finally begun to enter into and untangle you.
All right, good morning, Paradox. How you doing today? I'm doing great. Thank you so much for all your birthday wishes. You guys are so kind. Like I just feel so loved in this church family. It's great. I love that promo. Dave, you look so young. Did they I love movies. Did they use age regression technology? Does he look young in that? It's awesome. I love movies. And we're talking about, the series is called True Stories. And as Dave mentioned in week 1, there's something just different and special of when you watch a movie or whatever that's a true story. Because you can then identify with the people a little bit more. As you're watching this sometimes amazing story unfold, it's not just a character. It's a real person who experienced that, and it helps us to identify. I especially love it when there's a movie that has where the main character goes through a really big life change, their heart. You actually see throughout the process of it their heart change, and it's that life change that draws us in. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk about change. We also said that we're and to do this, to kind of help understand that, we are working our way. This is week 3. We're working our way through the entire Bible. We're not going to be able to make all the stops along the way and look at all the lives and characters, the true stories in here, but we're going to look at some. We're going to look at one today, and we're going to then look at the whole thing as a bigger picture as to what God is doing. And Dave mentioned the other week that in order to do that, in order to really see this story unfold, we sometimes have to look through some different lenses than we're used to. So speaking of lenses, I have these new glasses. I used to, yeah, right? So I'm older now, obviously, and I've had the reading glasses, so I've had to take them up and down, and move, so I decided to make the jump to getting the glasses that are the bifocals, so that I can see at a distance and up close. But I don't know if I made a mistake or not, because these are they're bifocals, but they're this hyperbolic thing. So in the bottom reading part, it's actually, there's a zone in the middle, and then it gets blurry. So when I'm reading the word in front of my face, I can see everything else is blurry. When I look out here, you guys are looking good. You guys are kind of in blurry land right now. So do whatever you want. When I'm not looking, you guys get crazy. But here's the thing. I was at the optometrist, and nice lady, she's fitting me, she's explaining it to me, and this is what she said. She said, listen, it's going to take some getting used to. Your mind's got to adjust. It's going to be a bit of a process for you to get through, to kind of get these lenses right. But she said at the end of it, if you trust the process, and if you just give these a chance, your vision will be clear. And I thought that was perfect. I literally just picked these up this week, and that's what I'm preaching, and that's what we're talking about. God is good. We are talking about trusting the process so that we can have a little bit more of his vision and see a little bit clearer. So I want to break this down. Let's start by looking at this phrase, trusting the process. You guys heard this phrase before? I feel like it's a newer phrase. I don't think I heard it a lot when I was younger. I've heard it most in the sports world. I'm a guy, I like sports. I don't watch a lot of sports, but I follow a lot of sports. And one of the things I really like about sports is behind-the-scenes stuff, too, watching teams rebuild and how are they doing this and moving players and all that, and getting into fantasy football with Dave and some of the guys. You kind of get to be that, like, let's build a team. And I think it's cool when teams, they enter this process. And it usually happens when a team gets to a point where they're like, listen, it's not happening. With the team that we got, this is just not working. We're going to have to tear it down and build it up. And when they do that, oftentimes teams make moves that, when you first look at it, especially in light of like this next season, don't make sense. Like the Lions are entering a process now, again, right? And they just traded away. They're probably one of the best players, their quarterback, the star quarterback. They traded him away for future picks. Are the Lions going to be better this season because of that? No, probably not. But they're working and looking at a bigger goal down the road, trusting that these changes right now that don't make sense, that may be unpopular, are for a better reason. And that's called trusting in the process. I want to break that down even a little bit further and look at the actual words, trusting the process. And because we're going to relate in a minute to how this relates back to us. So a process, what is a process? Processes are things that take time. It's not a quick fix. It's something that takes time. I love this quote. It'll show up on your screen. The quote says this: no matter how great the talent or efforts, some things just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. This is a quote by Warren Buffett. He's a billionaire, hedge fund, brilliant financial guy. Also, obviously, he's a brilliant financial planner, or a family planner, along with financial planner. But you get the point, right? Like sometimes we want to shortcut the process. And whenever there's any meaningful change that has to happen in our lives, sometimes we want to shortcut to the end. Processes take time. They also have steps, multiple, sequential steps that can't be shortcut, that can't be jumped. If I want to make toast, I take the bread out, I put it in the toaster. If I'm going to skip the step of pushing it down, I got bread. I don't have toast, right? So process are things that take time. They're purposeful. They're steps. Each step growing and leading us to a new place, whether it's a sports team or a business or a family or a person, leading us to that next step so we can take the next step of growth. Processes take time. Processes have steps. But let's go back again to that phrase, trust the process. Where does it all start? With trust. With trust. Any process that we go in, and we're going to talk about the process of God shaping and growing us today, but any process starts with trust. Again, going back to the Lions, we've seen this story play out before, and many of us who follow it are jaded now, like, oh, here we go again. They're going to try and build it again. Because the people in place who are building this, we've seen them do it before. There's not a lot of trust. Hopefully this time will be different. I believe that'd be great. But when you look at the people who are leading in that, you start to question. Dave actually said last week that promises are only as good as the promise makers. Trusting a process is only as good as trust in the processor, the person, like whoever's laying out this process for you. We are going to look today at a story from the Old Testament of a group of people who were being invited by God into a process that was going to shape and mold and change not just them, but all of history forever. And they had to make a decision. Are they going to trust in this process? And so we're going to look at today what was that process they're stepping into, but we're also going to look at who was calling them into it and ask ourselves, can God be trusted with this process of shaping and molding our lives? Before we do that, before we open the Word and get into it, I just want to, would you join me in prayer and just invite God into this morning? Oh, man. God, I'm feeling really blessed today. Thank you so much. You're so good. I love this church family. I love my family. You've really created a place here where people can come as they are, feel welcome, feel challenged, feel accepted, and grow. So God, I thank you for this church. God, I thank you for your word. It can be, I'll be honest, this is a real moment, me and God, you guys listen along. God, your word sometimes confuses me. Sometimes it challenges me and it cuts me to the bone. Sometimes it shows me parts of myself that I don't like. But God, here's what your word also does. Your word shows me you. God, you're revealed through the pages of this book, and what I see is a God who's holy and powerful and transcendent. But God, I also see a God who loves me for who I am. It blows my mind. It shouldn't happen, but you do. So I thank you for your word. I thank you that we get to open it together today, and I pray that we would open it regularly and get to know you. I pray that we would lean on each other here as a church and get into your word and understand your love for us even better. I pray that you would do that for the next little bit of time here today. God, we love you. Amen. All right, so are you ready? We are going to, one person is ready. We are going to look at a story from the Bible today. But last we left things, Dave was up here and we talked about Abraham. And God had made this big promise to Abraham that he was going to bless all nations, that he was going to grow, even though Abraham and his wife Sarah were infertile. They hadn't had any kids yet. God said, you are going to have kids. In fact, your descendants are going to number the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach, and the whole world is going to be blessed through you, Abraham. That's where we left things off. The story that we want to focus on today is 600 plus years later. So I don't want to leave you wondering. I don't want to have any holes unfilled. So I am going to try and cover 600 plus years in 6 minutes. Are you ready? Do we have a timer? We have a timer. If we have a timer, let's put a timer up on the screen. I'm ready for this challenge. Okay, I think we may have one on the screen. Anyway, you guys time me. Okay, here we go. So, Abraham and Sarah did have a son. His name was Isaac. Isaac, God's chosen, right? And Isaac grew up in the land of his father, the land of Canaan, the land that God had promised to Abraham. Isaac grows up there. He marries. He has 2 sons, twin sons, Esau and Jacob. God, knowing and seeing into the future, as God does, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, he chooses Jacob, actually the younger son, the second twin born. He said, Jacob is going to be the one through whom I'm going to continue this promise that I made to Abraham. Esau and Jacob grow up. Jacob, through a little bit of chicanery, steals the birthright and the promise from his brother. But God uses him. What we learn from that is that God can use any of us. Some of us think that we're disqualified and we're not good enough and God can't use us. The story of Jacob shows us God will and can use anyone. So Jacob grows up. He has 12 sons by a couple different women. Okay, so he has these 12 sons who later become the 12 tribes of Israel. And we're going to focus on the 11th son, Joseph. Why the 11th son? Because he was favored by the father, by Jacob. And he was favored because he was the firstborn of the wife that he loved, Rachel. And so the son, Joseph, is his favorite. But not only that, he's chosen by God and he's special. God has given Joseph kind of this ability to have these dreams and interpret dreams. In fact, God gives Joseph this one dream that he kind of foolishly shares with the entire family. He calls the family together and says, hey, family, guess what? I had this dream where the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down to me. And the family's like, dude, you're saying we're all going to bow down to you? He's like, yeah, isn't that cool? God gave me this dream. Okay, he's not very smart. His brothers, his older brothers, are like, dude, we're sick of this kid. He's the favorite. Blah, blah, blah. So they have this time where they're out in the field. His brother wanders out. Hey, guys, what's going on? They decide that they're going to kill him. The older brother stops them. No, we can't kill them. But while the older brother has his back turned, the other brothers say, you know what? Killing him doesn't help us. Oh, look, here's some traders that are going down the road. Let's sell our little brother to the traders. They sell Joseph to these traders who are going off to Egypt. So Joseph goes over to Egypt with it. I want to jump to the Bible real quick. Genesis 39, verse 2, because I want you to see this. You can see it on your screens. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and as he was in the house of his Egyptian master. So the whole point, and what we really wanted you to see, was God was with Joseph. It wasn't that God was only in this land of Canaan that he promised. He was with Joseph. God is with us. So he goes with Joseph. Joseph is sold into slavery. He lands in this house of Egyptian official. And God blesses him and uses him. And he becomes smart and wise. And the leader of the house sees this. And he starts giving him more and more. Well, along with being smart, Joseph is also a handsome dude. And the wife is trying to seduce him and bring him in. And Joseph, being a godly man, says, no, you're a married woman. I can't be with you. She tricks him. She frames him. He gets arrested. He goes to jail. In jail, he meets these couple of guys who are officials of the king, the Pharaoh of Egypt. They were in jail for I don't know what, but in there they had dreams. And Joseph uses his ability that God gave him. He interprets the dreams. The one guy gets out of jail. He goes and serves the Pharaoh of Egypt. Several years pass by. Nothing happens with Joseph until the Pharaoh of Egypt has these dreams that he can't understand. He sees these 7 fat cows, and he sees these 7 skinny cows come and eat the 7 fat cows, and he's like, what the heck is this? He goes to all his officials and his wise guys, and he says, what is going on? And they say, I don't know. This cupbearer, this guy who's giving him the cup, he's like, I know a guy. Yeah, a couple years ago, he interpreted a dream for me. So Pharaoh gets Joseph out of jail, says, what the heck is up with this dream? Joseph says, listen, in Egypt, you're going to have 7 years of harvest, and it's going to be plentiful, and there's going to be lots of stuff. And then there's going to be 7 years of lean and famine. So here's what you need to do, king. You need to harvest for 7 years, build it up, store it up, and then there'll be stuff for the people. He says, good, you're awesome. I'm going to make you second in command over all of Egypt. And he does. God is with Joseph and continues to use him. So he does that, and all this happens. Go back to the land of Canaan, where we last left Jacob and these other sons. Okay, now this same famine is a regional, it's beyond there. So they're experiencing that this loss of food or whatever. He says, what are we going to do? Hey, they got food in Egypt. So he sends his sons to go over to Egypt where they're going to get food. Joseph, and you got to read this for yourself, it's so cool. He kind of messes with his brothers a little bit and like for a little while, but then ultimately he reveals himself to his brothers. He says, guys, it's me, Joseph. They freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill us. He says, no, I love you guys. It's okay. Come on. Go get dad. Come on over here. I'll take care of you. So he does. He goes back to get Jacob, who is now, God has changed his name to Israel. Israel and the whole crew comes over to Egypt where they set up shop and so that they have food. They're with Joseph. Everyone is living great, except time goes by. The people of Israel who are now the Israelites are multiplying. Remember the promise to Abraham. God said that he would bless, the descendants would be. Apparently, the Israelites were very fertile people because they kept growing and growing, more and more people, to the point where the original Pharaoh died, Joseph died, everyone's dying off, and the new Pharaoh is like, oh my gosh, we have a problem. There's all these Israelite people, and they're multiplying. They're going to take us over unless we use them. Hey, let's use them to build our pyramids and our temples and our streets and everything. So they bring the Israelites into slave labor. They put them to hard work. The Israelites keep growing to the point where the king has to take drastic steps. The Pharaoh actually decrees that the firstborn son would be killed of all the Israelites. As he does that, there's this one little baby named Moses. And the mom protects him as long as she can. She puts him wherever, she hides him. Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses, raises him as her own. But ultimately, Moses, in a fit of rage one day, as he sees one of the Israelites being whipped and beaten, he kills an official. This is against the law. So he runs away to this foreign land where for several years he is a sheep herder and everything until one day God appears to him in a burning bush. God himself tells him, Moses, I'm going to send you back. You are going to be the one to rescue my people from Israel. Moses is like, no way, I can't do that. Yes, you can. My power will be with you. I'll send your brother. He'll help you. So Moses goes back to Egypt, meets with his brother, with the staff that God gave him, said, I'm going to show you my power, and you are the one I'm going to work through to rescue my people, Israel. And that's where we pick up the story today. 2 seconds. Okay. Can I be done? I'm tired. I'm really tired now. All right. So that's where where we pick up the story today. Okay. Oh, I have this verse twice. I'm going to read it off the screen. So this is where we pick it up. Exodus 4:29. All right, it says, Then Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders and people of Israel. Aaron spoke all the words that the Lord had given Moses and did the signs in the sight of the people, and the people believed. And when they heard that the Lord had visited the people of Israel and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed their heads and worshiped. Okay, so Moses and Aaron, they go to the people and they're like, tell them a story. It's time. And they were ready. These Israelites were ready. They were tired of the hard work. They were tired of the infanticide, having their kids killed out from under them. They were ready to go on. They'd heard the stories of their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They'd heard about this place that God had promised them, a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, I like milk and honey, but a land that's flowing with it, I don't know about that. But okay, it sounds good, right? So they're so ready to go. And they see in this that, well, here's the thing. They're ready to go because they've been beaten down so hard. And here comes along this promise. I want to share this quote, too. I think this is a really cool quote that just kind of speaks to our minds and how we see things. It says this. This is from a pastor, Chris Cook. He said, no one changes until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. Is that true for us? You ever experienced that? Like we know we need to change whatever it is. If it's our health, it's our whatever it is. Like we know we need to make this change. And sometimes it takes it getting so bad that I was like, I just can't stay in this. I can't keep this way anymore. And I believe that's where the Israelites were. They were ready, and they were so ready that they said, "Yep, give us a plan." They had it, and they were ready to worship God. Now, so this God is ready to invite them into this process of change, of big change for them. And I think whenever this happens, when God calls us into change, into a process, the process reveals to us several things we're going to look at this morning. The first thing is that the process reveals who God is. The process, when God calls us into a process, the process reveals who God is through that process. Dave talked about it 2 weeks ago, so I'll only touch on these a little bit. Go back and listen to that. When we looked at creation, and we said that God is two things we pointed out: transcendent and immanent. Transcendent, meaning that he transcends anything that we could ever think or imagine. His power, his understanding is beyond anything that we can understand. So we've got a God who is so powerful and transcendent, speaking a universe into existence. That's the God that we have. That's the God that Moses and Aaron were bringing to the Israelites that day. But not only is God transcendent and this powerful God, he's immanent. Immanent means that he is with us from the very beginning, with Adam and Eve in the garden, with the Israelites now. Because did you see what it said? He said that God saw their pain, he saw their affliction, and God was with them and wanted to bring them to him out. So this powerful God who can create a universe, speak it into existence, cares about each and every one of us. Those Israelites who are multiplying like rabbits cared about each and every single one of them. I want to add another one this morning, another aspect, a facet of who God is. And there's so many, but this one I want to add as well this morning. That God is not just transcendent, that God is not just immanent, but that he is intentional. God has a purpose. God has a plan. I want to read this verse together from Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet, and God gave him this to say. The same people of Israel, this is a little bit in the future, this is past what we're going to talk about today, but God gave him this to say to the people. He said, remember the former things of old. And when Isaiah is talking to the Israelites, when he says former things of old, he's talking about what we're talking about today, about leaving Egypt and everything. He says, remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. Back then in the day, they had lots of gods who did lots of things. Today, if we're honest, we have lots of gods. God makes it clear, there is none like me. Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things not yet done. Saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purposes. We follow a powerful God who is intentional, and he has purposes planned, and we are not going to stop him, but he's immanent. He loves us. He's inviting us along. He's inviting us along into his plans and into his process. So the Israelites, Moses and Aaron bring this plan. They're like, oh, yes, God, yes, we're in it. We love you. And so let's go back and let's see what next. We go back to the Bible and we read. And so the Israelites marched out of Egypt directly into the promised land and lived happily ever after. The end. Said no version of the Bible ever. That is not what happened. That is not what happened. That is probably what the Israelites would have loved to happen. Oh, God's going to just take us right out of here. Remember what we said. Processes take time. Processes have steps, multiple steps. In fact, this first attempt by Aaron and Moses, by our standards, by the Israelite standard, failed miserably. They went to Pharaoh and they said, hey, they didn't even ask to let him go in total. They said, hey, could we go out in the wilderness for a couple days and praise God and worship together? The people could use a break. Could we do that? You know what Pharaoh said? No. You want to take my workforce? Who is your God that he would take my workforce for a couple days? You Israelites are lazy. You know what? I'm up in the ante. One of the jobs that the Israelites had was building bricks for the buildings. With mud, they would put straw. The straw would act like rebar to kind of hold it together. And the Egyptians would, here's the straw to make the thing. He said, you know what? You guys get your own straw. You're going to come to me and ask me, you guys go get your own. And now the Israelites, and by the way, your quota of bricks has not go down by one. So the Israelites' work basically doubled. And so they're freaking out. Let's go back to the word now and see what it says. How did they react to this? Exodus chapter 5, verse 20, they said, they met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them, as they came out from Pharaoh. And as they said to them, the Lord look on you and judge you, because you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants. You have put a sword in their hands to kill us. They're very dramatic. They're overreacting a little bit, but they're like, what did you do? This is not the way that it was supposed to go down. We're still stuck here. Our work is doubled. Moses, Aaron, what is going on? That's their reaction to this process. They took one step into this process of change, and already they're like, whoa, hold on. But I'm sure Moses will talk him down, the sage leader that he is. Let's go on. Let's see what Moses' reaction is to that. So Moses then says, verse 22, Moses turned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all." Let's get real. This is what happens, right? We make a decision. We say, we need a change in our life. We reach out to God, who's eminent creator of the universe, loves us, and we say, we're ready. We want to make this change. And then God asks us to change something. He asks us to take a step of obedience, whatever that might be. Maybe it's to put something down. Maybe it's to pick something up. Maybe it's to go to a relationship and start to mend a relationship. Maybe it's to take a step into church for the first time. Whatever it is, maybe God has this step. And so we take that step, and guess what we meet? Resistance. And boom, just like that, we're like, whoa, what did I sign up for? I don't know about that. This leads into the second point that I want to make, that the process reveals who God is. When we enter into a process of a change, the process also reveals who we are. So, by our nature, let's be honest, by our nature, we are people who like comfort, especially here in modern America, like we love comfort. When we are uncomfortable, we do not like it. And so when we enter into any kind of change, and the first little sign of resistance, we want to back away. Our general nature is to back away. And while that may be short-term gain for us, thinking back to the process, we probably need to take a step in a little bit further and a little bit further, because this process of change, if it's worthwhile, takes time. Again, going back to the teams who take these steps to change their team, they're looking at winning the big prize at the end. It might take a season or two. For us, it might take a year or 2 or 5 or our lives, right, to get to this. But it's a process worth taking if we want to step out of where we are. And God, in his mercy, helps us along with this process. I want to turn to Proverbs. Proverbs is written by a guy named Solomon. God had granted him with wisdom. Listen to what Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 3. He says this. He's writing it to one of his sons. He says, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him who he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights." If we're entering a process with God and it gets hard, and it will for all of us, when you step into life with God and you ask him and you say, okay, show me the path, show me what you want me to do next, give me a next step. That step might be unpopular with the people around you. It might feel difficult and awkward to take, right? And it may result in some turmoil for you. But just know that God is with you like he was with Joseph. And know that God is disciplining disciplining us to bring out the best in us. I wanted to show this video, but just for time reasons, I don't have time, but here's your homework for you. As I was researching this a little bit, I brought to mind some scripture in many parts. But the Bible talks about God refining us like pure gold. So I went to the internet, and back to the Church Center app, if you go in the Church Center app and you go under the event today, you can find all the scriptures that we're using. You can link right on them, and it'll take you right to it. I also put a link to a video that you can watch, a YouTube video that talks about how gold is refined. But let me talk about that for a second. Gold is this amazing element. There's a reason why gold is gold. Like not only is it beautiful and shiny and nice, gold has amazing properties, in terms of how you can bend it and make wire out of it and move it, and it's very, very strong, and yet it's very corrosion resistant, like water, air doesn't affect it like it does other metals. There's a reason why we prize gold. Gold is in our cell phones. Gold is in so many different things because of its unique properties. But the process to pull that amazing element out of the world that it's in is so extensive. Like go watch the video, but there's so many steps that look destructive, that you think you look at it and you watch what this rock is going through, and you're like, oh gosh, how can the gold even survive the crushing and the mixing and the furnace, the refining under 1600 degrees? Like, how is the gold getting through this? But when you see them pour the gold out at the very end after all that process, right? And it's beautiful and it's pure. Like, that's what God wants to do to us. That's what God is calling us into a process to do. The process reveals who we are. It reveals our resistance. It reveals our nature to be resistance to change. But ultimately, if we will continue to walk with God day by day, taking that next step of obedience to whatever he's calling into us, he's working a work to discipline, to reproof, refine us. He sees the pure gold in us. And don't get me wrong, he loves us right where we're at. He loves each and every one of us right where we are. But he sees, like a good parent, he sees more of it. Parents in here, like would it make, you want the best for your kid. You want them to pull out the best. For what reason? So that you can have a better relationship, so that their relationships and their life in the future is better. God wants the same. God is a good parent. He wants that same thing for us. All right, so let's go back to the story. So Moses takes the complaints to God. So, and Moses says, God, what are you doing here? Let's look at God's response. This is very important. We said at the beginning that we want to trust the process. That starts with trusting the processor, trusting God. Let's see what God's response is to Moses. So Exodus chapter 6. God says this. He's talking to Moses. Say therefore to the people of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will redeem you with outstretched arms and with great acts of judgments. Are you catch the two words that you're hearing over and over again? I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord. So what two words do we hear over and over and over again? I will. I will. God will. Right? And this just shows the power of God, that he will make this change. And we can know that when God calls us in, he doesn't say, here's how, this is what we do. Humans do to one another. We say, you need to change. You should do this, this, and this. Go work on it. You need to do this. God's not the same. He's not like that. God calls us into a change, and he says what? I will. Walk along with me. I'll do the heavy lifting. Your job to listen, obey, step into what I have next, whether it's uncomfortable or not, or step into it. I will do the heavy lifting. I will. God doesn't say, I can. Hey, Israelites, I can deliver you to the promised land if you want. No, they were at a point where they're like, no, we're good. Remember, God's purposes will be accomplished. He's transcendent. He's eminent. He's also intentional. His purposes are going to happen. He invites us along. So, and he invites us along, and God says, I will. He doesn't say that I can. Well, how can he do that? Let's wrestle with this a little bit together, because this is a big question. So let's wrestle with a big question. How can God sit back and say, you know what? This is what's going to happen. I will deliver you guys. You will come. This is going to happen. This is going to happen, and I will. How is he able to say that? Well, I believe that the reason he is able to say that is the very reason that we can trust him. I'm going to need a little bit of help with an experiment. As Dave mentioned, I like props. We got some props. I need someone's help. I need someone who has some good vision. I need an adult who would say that they have some good, like pretty good eyesight, to come on up and help me with an experiment. Don't make me pick. Come on, who's going to help me out? I need one person to come and help me with an experiment. You want to do it? Come on up. Sure, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. All right. Oops. There we go. I learned. Can you stay? Oh, hey. How you doing, Angie?
Hi.
Say hi to everyone. Everyone, this is Angie.
Hello.
All right, Angie, I want you to be safe up here with me, so I got a little PPE for you. I'm going to ask you to put this on.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just going to put this right on
Okay.
like this. All right, is that good?
Sure.
Okay, so now you're safe, right? You're going to help me with a little experiment.
Okay.
Okay? So I just need you to step over here. You're good. It's like pin the tail on the donkey.
Oh my God.
Spin it 3 times. All right, all you're going to do is I'm going to show you a picture in a second, and you're going to tell me what you see.
Okay.
Okay? It's that simple. All right? I think we're ready. Let's take a look at the picture. Just good and close, no closer.
Okay.
There you go. All right, we're ready for this picture. Magic. Hold on. Okay, so I want you to take a look right here. Do you see, what do you see?
I see Joe Biden
Almost.
or an old man.
That's, now you're making me forget his name. What's his name? Bernie Sanders. It's Bernie
Okay.
Sanders. You see
Okay.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I do.
Is that all you see? No, don't move your head.
Yeah, I don't see anything else.
You don't see anything else. Just
No.
Bernie Sanders sitting in a chair with mittens on.
Yeah.
Okay,
And a
now go
mask.
ahead and take a step back and take your guard, take this off. And, oh, I'm sorry, I'm pulling your hair. Now tell us, what do you see?
Oh, I see God. Or Moses.
We see Moses. Thank you, Angie. Give her a hand. Thank you so much for being such a good sport. All right. When Angie was here, from her perspective, she sees, why do I keep blanking on his name? Now you got me saying Joe Biden. That's all I'm, what's his name? Bernie Sanders. I said, she sees one Jewish man sitting in a chair. You guys who have a different vantage point see a bigger picture. We see another Jewish man leading a multitude of people. Thank you, Crystal and her friends, for making this beautiful mural. We see Moses leading the people through the Red Sea. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute. But do you see the point? From our human perspective, and it's not our fault, like we have a limited perspective, we see this much. God can see so much more. It's just his perspective is different than us. His vantage point is different than us. Are there any Avengers fans in here? Any fans? Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah. You're getting there. Do you remember in the first Avengers movie, near the beginning of it, director Nick Fury, he comes to this research facility, they're researching this Tesseract, and he says to Barton, this guy who's there, who's supposed to be watching, he says, hey, what are you doing? Where's Barton? I assigned him to keep a close eye on things. And the other guy says, the Hawkeye, his nickname is Hawkeye. He's up in his perch. Barton is way up here. He's way up above the research facility in the rafters looking down. And he says to Nick Fury, he says, I see better from a distance. And we know that to be true, right? Lifeguards, bow hunters, thank you, bow hunters, tennis referees, right? We put people up in higher spots so that they have a greater vantage point. Like right now, I can see you back playing Candy Crush, Greg. Stop it. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. He's not. He's listening very intentionally. God has a different vantage point for us. Imagine this. Imagine traffic copters are another one, right? We put copters up in the sky because they can see the whole picture of the road and what's happening. They can see where you've been, where you are in your car, and what's down the road so that they can report to you. Imagine this. Imagine if you had a traffic copter person, whatever they are, who was up there speaking directly to you. And not only could this person see where you've been, can see what's coming up down the road, see all the other cars and where they're going, but also if that person was, this is going to blow your mind a little bit, if that traffic copter was just always there, eventually they would see where you ultimately go, where you've been, where you are, where you're going to go, because they're up there just watching. Now imagine, this is where it blows our mind. Imagine they can go to you at a certain moment, knowing where you're going to go, where everyone else is and is going to go, and then it speak into you and speak life into you and speak direction and give you a step to take that would serve some greater purpose. Would we listen to that person? I hope so. They have a vantage point that we don't have. They see everything that we can't see. But that's where our mind kind of goes crazy. We just can't understand that. And that's okay. I want to go to Isaiah again. Isaiah chapter 55. Look at what Isaiah says about God. Actually, no. Look at what God says to Isaiah about who he is. God says this, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. This gets back to trust, right? Many theologians and people in general, we've all done this at some point in time, have tried to wrestle with, like, wait a minute. How can God know what's going to happen in the future and know everyone's heart right now and still allow bad things to happen? And how can he accomplish his purpose that's going to involve us somehow? But we also have free will, and we can decide at any moment. I could decide right now to walk off the stage. Right now, I could just go. I could. How does that all work together? I can't understand it. So I want to paint an analogy for you to help us a little bit. Imagine this. Imagine I go into our Journey program, which I love. We go to the guppy room. Guppy room's with the infants, right? I take my laptop computer, and I plop it down in the middle of the room with the guppies, and I say, here you go, guys. Use it. Right? What are infants going to do with a laptop? Their pudgy little hands are going to go over and, like, smack it. They're going to eat it. If they're lucky enough to find a way to open it, if they're lucky enough, maybe one of them mashes the button that actually turn. They're not going to log in and send an email to their mom requesting Cheerios. Like, they can't do it. It's just not something that they can do. When it comes for us to try to wrestle with the how of God does things, the reality is we just can't. And God tells us that, and it's okay. My ways are above your ways. My thoughts are above your thoughts. You're an infant with a laptop. Just trust me. I've got this. But we don't do this. We as people, we tend to get it backwards. We want to know all the information. We want to know before we enter a process, how does it work? What are the steps going to be? What's it going to require of me? What's the cost? Well, give me all the information. Then I'll decide whether I take a step in and trust the process based on what I know. God calls us in the other way. He says, trust me first. He's like, trust me, and then you will know me. Trust me, and then you will know me. Then you will know yourself. And the last point we want to touch on today, then you will know my true purpose. The process reveals who God is. The process reveals who we are. The process also reveals God's purposes. Think back to the Israelites, right? They thought, God's coming in to our story. He's inviting us back into relationship with him so that we can get to the promised land. If that was God's goal, was to get those hundreds of thousands of people across a couple hundred miles into a different space, could have done it just like that. If that was his goal, there's nothing stopping God from having all the Israelites just disappear in front of Pharaoh and reappear in another place. Nothing. Clearly, that wasn't his goal, because that's not what he did. Instead, he leads them to the edge of a gigantic sea. Makes no sense. God then moves in the heart of Pharaoh, who's upset that we skipped over the 10 plagues. All this horrible stuff happened in Egypt to finally convince Pharaoh to let them go. But then he goes back and he says, you know what? No, I want my workforce back. He actually hardens Pharaoh's heart to go after them and go get them. So now they're up against this sea, and the Pharaoh and his army is raging down on them to this point, right? Until God steps in, parts the sea. Like this doesn't make sense to us. The short term, wait, the plan was to us to get to this promised land. You bring us here. You have them chase us. This doesn't make any sense. But that was not God's purpose, was just to get in there. His purpose was he wanted a chance to show them in an undeniable way his power, his transcendence, his eminence, that he was with them, and his intentionality, that he had a plan. And when they walk through that water, when we walk through waters, when God makes a way and opens and we walk through, that's when real life begins. And then here's what happened with the Israelites, just so you know. If you don't know the story, they walk through the sea to the other side, and behind them the waters crash in on the Egyptian army. God saves them. On the other side of that sea, was that the promised land? Those who know the story? No. That was not the promised land. The Israelites would then endure 40 more years together, wandering, even though it wasn't that far away. God had them on this journey. His purpose was not to get them the destination. His purpose was the journey. to show his power, to draw them closer to him, to each other, to refine them like that pure gold, to bring out of them what he had made them for. God desperately wants relationship with us. God isn't about a destination. He's about relationship. He's not up in a traffic copter in the sky. God's goal is not that each and every one of us that call on him, God save me, yes, Jesus, I want to follow you. He says, great, I'm going to get you to heaven in the least resistance possible. And I'm going to move everything around so that you can get to heaven and I can get you here as soon as possible. That's not his plan. In fact, when we enter in relationship with God, when we ask Jesus into our lives to lead him, often things get more difficult. God, the traffic copter God, has us bump into one another. He allows and he puts obstacles and roadblocks in our way for what? The purpose of disciplining, refining, and growing us so that we can be pure gold, relationship with one another and with him. So we've gotten this far through the book. We're going to continue in weeks to come. But I want to skip ahead a little bit. I hope I'm not giving away the ending of the story too much. But God led the Israelites through this amazing process. And to go back to Abraham, God said that he was going to bless all mankind through Abraham and through his descendants. Someone who walked through this water that day was an ancestor of Jesus. And we'll see as we go through the rest of the story, but ultimately, as Dave said in the promo, it leads to the cross, it leads to the tomb, it leads to God's ultimate plan. We said that God's plans cannot be stopped. God's ultimate plan to save each and every one of us, to love each and every one of us. That's why Jesus came. That's why God himself came to be among us. As we close the service today, I want us to just think about that. Those of us who know the rest of the story, those of us who know that Jesus came to live and teach and die for us and then rise again to new life, we have some communion cups that are on your seat. And we're going to start this song. In a few minutes into the song, I'm going to come back up, and together we're going to take communion. Communion is just a chance. It's a reminder of who Jesus is and what he did. Jesus instituted this as something for us to do to remind us, where he and his disciples gathered, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but he instituted communion as a way for us to remember him. So if you know who Jesus is and you want to have this chance to remember, we're going to do that together. But I also want to acknowledge that for some of you, you might not be emotionally, like maybe something I said, maybe something God said this morning has rattled you a little bit. And that's okay. That's good. Maybe that's the step in your process. This last song, this last little bit of our service is for you. This is your time to do one of several things. If you want someone to pray with you, if you're feeling like, whether you're online, whether you're here, maybe you're feeling like, there's something I need to talk about with someone. I want to talk to a person. I want someone to pray over me. We have some people from our prayer team outside those doors when the song starts. Feel free to go out there and talk to them. If you're online, you can click. There should be a button for you to get prayer. There should be a way for you to request prayer. Someone, a live person, will chat with you. They can even call you to pray with you. Maybe you're kind of new to this whole story, this true story, but something is shaking loose. And you just want to sit in this and just take a moment and just, maybe you've never prayed before. Maybe you just want to ask God. Just try it. Just sit there, be quiet, and just say, God, if you're there, if you're real, if you love me like this guy says, if you've got a plan to find me and to pull out the best of me, if there's a step I need to take, would you show me today? Will you invite me in today? So, as Lynn is sing this last song, I just want to invite you into that to have some time with God. I'll come back up in a minute and we'll take communion together.
Yeah, just like Mike said, we're going to sing a newer song. It's called Build My Life. And there's a line in the chorus of the song that says, show me who you are and fill me with your love completely. And as we sing the song, I would just encourage you to ask God that. Show me who you are. Show me the plans that you have for me. Not what I have for myself, but what you have for me.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of every praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
So Jesus, when he was faced with a huge step that he was about to take for us, he pulled his friends together and they had a meal. And during that meal, he invited them into a time of remembrance. And he instituted this thing that we call communion as a way for us to remember what he did for us. So together, let's take this way for us. Remember that when Jesus broke bread at that meal, he gave it to his friends. And he said, "This is my body given for you, broken for you. So get together. Remember, do this. Eat some in remembrance of me." Again, after supper, he took a cup. And he said, this cup represents a new covenant in his blood. Just like the covenant that God made with Abraham in the back to bless people through his descendants. This is the fulfillment of that and the beginning of a new covenant where Jesus says, this is a new covenant in my blood shed for you and for us. So as we take this drink, let's remember that Jesus died, gave his life for ours, ransom for our life. We get to be with God forever. We get to have life with God. We get to be refined by him because of what Jesus did. So together, let's take this and thank him.
I will build my life around your name. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you.
Sing that one more time, worthy.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. We live for you.
I love that song. Show me who you are, fill me, then lead me to other people. God, we trust you this morning. We thank you for who you are and that you've called us into this process. Help us to trust you on you alone, God. Paradox, you are loved. Thank you for joining us today. I just encourage you as you leave here to think about that. Think about what is a step that God is calling me into this morning. Maybe you're joining us for the first time online or here. Maybe the next step is to come again. Maybe the next step in your life is maybe there's someone that you need to forgive. Maybe you haven't talked to God in a while, and the next step you need to do is just to go home and be still and talk and listen to him. Maybe the next step is to join us this Wednesday for prayer night. Maybe for you, prayer is kind of this, I don't know, pray. Honestly, this is going to sound like, I don't understand how you could be a follower of Jesus, how you could say, yes, God, I want, and not pray. You probably do it and don't realize that you're already doing it. It's simply talking to God. Join us as we do that. It's not scary. It's not going to be weird. It's just going to be us together, our family in this room, just talking to our dad. And there'll be an opportunity for you to say something in a smaller group or not, or just be here. So I encourage you to join us this Wednesday for prayer night. Paradox Church, you are so loved. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Go with Jesus. Thank you.
Shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing.